In Star Trek The Original Series, the Enterprise D rescues 3 ancient humans from cryogenic stasis, and they were ordered to the Romulan neutral zone on an important mission. However, this is not the topic of discussion. The topic is, in fact, cryogenic freezing. Though the active science of cryogenic freezing started 1 year after the fantasy was indulged in Star Trek, cryogenic freezing is the process of something being submerged in liquid nitrogen and frozen.
This includes food, humans, animals, etc. Even though cryogenic freezing is used for many different processes, the focus will be more on the organic part of the process. In theory, cryogenic freezing has the possibility to freeze a cadaver and eventually reanimate it when there is a cure for the disease in the body and scientists are able to revive them. But it is also used for other organic purposes. Cryogenic freezing can be used for any organism, including humans for the future, embryos for storage for artificial reproduction, and even freezing food for long-term storage and transport.
The number one focus on this subject is, of course, humans. One man, Aubrey de Grey, said that he believes that aging, the process by which living things ultimately wear themselves out and die, isn't an inevitable part of the human condition. Instead, aging is just another disease, not really different in kind from any of the other serious ailments, such as heart failure or cancer that kill people.
He also believes that cryogenic freezing is one way of proving this. This helps open up the idea that many people believe that they can cheat death, and believe that they can use cryogenic freezing in order to prove themselves correct. Cryogenics, however, are not that reliable at the moment. They have many missing factors and cannot fully be used for this purpose until those factors are included. The fundamental concept of taking a body shortly after death, replacing the blood with an antifreeze-like solution and freezing it with liquid nitrogen is mentioned in the article Putting Mortality on Ice.
Cryogenically freezing the body allows it to be preserved until theoretically the cure or antidote is made. They would then thaw out and treat the subject, which would allow them to live again, though the scientific process for reviving them is not yet discovered, so therefore it is impossible at this point in time. When it is known, this could help save lives and help many people that need treatment for diseases.
Putting a corpse into a deep freeze, ostensibly for reanimation in a more technologically savvy future, isn't as simple as closing the freezer door. The process must be gradual and involve several steps. First, clinical death is declared. The body is then cooled with ice and transported to the clinic. Next, bodily fluids are replaced with antifreeze and drained via CPR. The body is then put in a chamber where nitrogen gas continues cooling the body. Once the body reaches negative 321 degrees, it is placed upside down in a tank filled with liquid nitrogen.
Ultimately, the process is a lot more complicated than what people believe it is. There's a lot that goes into this process. Even if cryogenic freezing is in fact possible for a human cadaver, it is in no way a simple task. Many people have already been frozen in hopes that in the future, when medical science figures out how to repair and revive them, they could be thawed out.
This isn't a true way to fully obtain immortality, especially since there hasn't been a cure for cancer yet, much less reversing death and healing each individual cell of the human body. Humans have always searched for the possibility of becoming immortal, and with this new treatment, their dream could become a reality.
Next, the first step of life for the human race will be discussed, namely embryos. Many debates and experiments have been done to assess the risk of this, including a study by French researchers of mice raised from frozen embryos that suggests freezing may affect certain aspects of development, and thus raises new questions about possible risks to human babies conceived with artificial reproduction technologies.
Theoretically, infants conceived with artificial reproduction would show to be born with genetic mutations. The genetic mutations would not have any serious effect, but the mother may be more likely to experience miscarriages or difficulties in pregnancy. The baby may also have a different jaw shape than their parent.
Despite all of this, the babies would be born and they would most likely be healthy. The only experiments with embryos have been on mice, so there hasn't been any human testing so far. In the past, there have been more problems with sex and genetic makeup of the tested mice than the mice in the control group.
The controlled group were all naturally born mice, which did not experience the same complications as the cryogenic mice. Since the mice who were born from cryogenically frozen embryos have had problems with sex and genetic makeup, is it safe to assume that the same thing could happen to the infants that are born from cryogenically frozen embryos?
While cryogenically frozen embryos may have the potential to help many people have children, there's also a big risk factor for both mothers and children.
The final topic being discussed in terms of cryogenic freezing is, of course, the most important thing in the world: food. Cryogenic freezing is very favorable to food processing industries, especially since certain features of nitrogen make it an ideal refrigerant for use in the food industry. Besides being one of the world's coldest substances when in its liquid form, it is also completely inert, so it will not react with other substances and affect the taste or smell of the products it freezes. Importantly, unlike other refrigerants, it occurs naturally in the Earth's atmosphere and has no adverse environmental effects.
This proves that at least cryogenics is favorable in terms of food, though maybe only just. It has many positive attributes, including being cheaper, more compact, and natural. Another benefit of cryogenically freezing food is that maintenance costs are so low because there is little to go wrong.
So between the process and the actual maintenance of cryogenically freezing food, there isn't really a deal-breaking downfall except for the 7-year expense and the demand. Unlike cryogenics with humans or embryos, food seems to have very little harm or red flags in the process of being cryogenically frozen.
With all of the data collected on this matter, it is safe to assume cryogenics has its ups and its downs. Whether it be humans, embryos, or even food, the possibility of using cryogenics on a full scale are now more alive than ever.
Cryogenics is a very large industry affecting everything from people to machinery. It is yet to be determined if cryogenic freezing is fully possible or if it's merely fantasized upon.